Muchas gracias, Manuel. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Manuel. I thank the three speakers. Apart from enjoying their talks, we've learned a lot of what they were here to tell us about. They spoke about competencies from the educational system so as to develop talent aimed at employability. Each of them in their different ways, with the different styles, having complementary, and have tackled the same topics. I'd like to point out, to highlight one idea from any of them. First of all, Carlos, taking risks. Amalio, the importance of mixing, of combining disparities. And Manuel, the importance, the need to adapt and to know how to make decisions. I don't know whether we have time to open up the discussion, or maybe we could leave it for the conclusions session. So we will leave this discussion to the conclusions section, and I give the floor now to Marcelo. And as we are running out of time, we are linking this discussion to the three speakers with conclusions, general conclusions sessions. I will invite some people to come up to the panel so that they can share with us what they've learned today, which is very important, what they were able to experience in the different workshops. So I'd like to ask Diana, please, to come over. Carlos Abi, please. That was in one of the workshops. Elena Rodriguez, that led another workshop in the afternoon. Aitor González, please. Ricard Huguet, that led one of the workshops and offered one of the morning, presented one of the morning talks, and also Juan Miguel Ruiz. So now that we are all here, first of all, I'd like to welcome you, to thank you. I'll ask each of them to share with us the main conclusions of the different workshops and a question that was posed by Diana. First of all, do we have any question for any of the three speakers, last speakers?
Por allí.
Sí, para mí,
for a question for Mr. Pimentel, I would like to ask him what is the basic difference between American talent and European talent, bearing in mind that they're applying the policies that are not being applied in the old Europe, when the more social aspects are more used in Europe than in America. The crisis has led to some really curious things. When there was President Bush, he was the first that made changes. In theory, the difference in G20 in 2010, the US decided what is technically called heterodox measures, decided to massively finance the federal debt, whereas in Europe, the rate was very different, and the Americans became to do public expenditure. That was the first difference. Europe, what did Europe do? And Europe isn't just one Europe. There are a lot of Europes. So it's very complicated. The main differences between the US, the money-making machine, is that there's a lot of, they say that there's a lot of debt the state and the administration are spending a lot more money than they earn. And in Spain is going to get 100% of the GDP. It is one of the countries that is most in debt. What concerns us here is that, say, the rhythm of the indebtedness. What is the difference then? Number one, well, a lot of money, millions and trillions of dollars have been put onto the market. They are a bit better than us. They have grown. They have more deficit than Spain, more public debt than Spain. Europe has supposedly applied a deficit control policy, which is a lie because there's still a deficit. But the case is what has happened in the rest of the world. And the rest of the world has continued to grow. Even Africa, which was the last continent to come in, is growing. And not to continue, as they've used the money-making machine more than we have, even though it is difficult to understand now, the deficit continues to grow. It's a question of using the money-making machine. The euro is expensive. In our case, what are we going to do then? We'll probably use the money-making machine as well. We're going to follow the same path as the others do. And now this is when the certain uncertainty comes. We don't know who is right in all of this. In any case, in Europe, we're going to in the concept, there's a lot of individualism. And in Europe, we have a more social, with respect to the differences that are going to be expressed in one way or another. I think we have a shared destination. We continue to be Western world. We continue to share things, but we are no longer the leaders of the world. We think a lot of, we are important in the world, but we have to share the rules with others. And now the chess game is completely different to what it was before. And there is uncertainty. Maybe things will go well, bad, or mediocre. We still have a lot of games to play. And let's hope we're doing the right thing and we'll be able to stabilize matters. More questions? I'd forgotten. I'm going to call a representative from Brain Flow. If you could come up here and share your experience with us. And this is really now a space. Is there another question there? I wanted to ask, I think it's very decisive when taking decisions, if you're going to be in at this time of uncertainty and pressure, how can you take intelligent decisions in view of an unpredictable future? How can the administrations, the institutions take these decisions? How does this affect their capacity of reaction, preparing plans, drawing up plans? Try to, if we understand that intelligent decisions have to be well thought out, or we have to give more time to them. In my class, there is a word that is forbidden, and that is prediction. In the Western world and our education, the education that we've all received, a deviation in 10% is something which is deficient. So a family who wants to go to Pamplona, to Moscow with 3 children, 3,000 euros, if they lose 2 children on the side, on the way there, and they get the rules of the game have changed. Things aren't like they were before. And with that premise in mind, making a prediction, it will probably lead to failure, even with in the Western world, where there are data that are terrible and statistics and measurements, we still fail. Imagine if we're launching new companies. I always tell my friends that in the sovereign markets, and the best thing is to try quickly, and if you're going to fail quickly too. So what I would say is that the word prediction at times of uncertainty is a forbidden word. What we have to do is to, if we try quickly, but if we make mistakes, we have to change quickly. So we can't make predictions.
¿Me oís? Sí. Va, perdón, ahora sí. Totalmente de acuerdo contigo.
I fully agree with you. In fact, I would add a concept I really like using, that is informed intuition. Informed intuition. Those terms seem contradictory, but in fact they are complementary. Because it's not good to go to the other extreme. There was a hyper-planification time, so we act according to a plan. But nowadays, it's more and more difficult to make a plan because variables tend to change. So there is a school that says that no plans should be made, we should just do and do and do. We look that we are headless, look in any direction. I call it the 70-30 ratio. So 70% looking, searching, and 30% finding. So leaving up a wide space to discover things. When speaking about personal development or company development, as Manuel stated before, we need to set some objectives. We need to look for things. So when I spoke about informed intuition, I said that we need to make an effort to use all opportunities to obtain relevant information, to exhaust all opportunities. So with a good reliability level, we need to try and find those areas. That's when information starts to be strange, we need to resort to intuition. We need to be very well informed, otherwise we will be exploring with no end, with no aim. We need to explore data, and there comes a point where we need to stop and think, stop and try to test, to try. So there is no perfect model. We need to pass, so action, reflection, action, reflection. So you go a step forward, you go backwards, you reflect, you improve what you've done, but let's not underestimate the importance of studying, or getting prepared, of looking for information, of finding out, of analyzing. This is still as important as the need to give time to information. Well, going this line, in the publishing world, there were some bestsellers. The Secret, that's the name of a book, very well known, a bestseller. If you have a thing, an idea in your head, if you dream about it, it will be fulfilled. Paulo Coelho spoke about that type of universe. But is it true? Let's assume we desire something and we have an aim, and my life dreams are these and that and these. If you believe in what you think about of your dream, as life is made of decisions, and never forget that, you tend to choose what you see as more coherent, more consistent. And by applying consistency, if you don't know where you are heading towards, well, you will never find any way, any path. it seems as if you are walking around the desert. So you may have walked to 5,000 kilometers and never found, reached any finishing line, any aim. It is true that paths, that ways change from one day to the other, etc., etc. So we are in Navarra. You are making important decisions. You are fostering healthcare, etc. If you really consider this is strategic for you, public resources are scarce and they will always be scarce. But what should we do? We need to make coherent decisions, and that's what we are going to do. And if you are a Rex Tyrannosaurus, you will look at the budgets that are a copy of the previous ones, but cut down, reduced. So this is really the case because we shape the budget structure considering our priorities, as in life, as in our personal lives. And I analyzed this in many organizations. You need to be coherent with your aims. They can change because circumstances, environments change, but this is, statistically proven. As Seneca stated, no wind is good for anybody that doesn't know what's his direction. So, his course. So we cannot be blocked by saying, I don't know anything, I don't know what to do, I shouldn't do anything because I don't know what to do. We should make decisions, taking the risk that we take some wrong ways. We need to make decisions. Because if you decide you follow the mass, you will be 65% zombie, a zombie. José León. Mr. Pimentel, I agree in that the crisis is a very profound one. But I'm really concerned about, let's say, Europe. I'm really preoccupied, concerned about this. There is no single authority. There is no common plan. There is no bank unity. There are no common criteria. Everything is very diverse. And if we consider the history of Europe, you'll see that that was called the Europe of merchants, a Europe made of merchants. So can we reach any solution to harmonize criteria within Europe? I have no idea, first of all. Secondly, I think this is a miracle. So our history is the whites, the Westerns. We are really warriors. We were fantastic warriors. We have a lot of capability, a lot of aggressiveness. And we killed each other quite efficiently for many thousands of years. So you kill somebody and somebody kills you, and there is, we think we are eco-pacifists, etc., that we have no malice, but that is not true. We are bipolar. We are all bipolar. So the spirit of struggle, of overcoming our problems, Sahara, that start to meditate and look at the stars. But we have a different history. We come from aggressiveness. We have killed each other with a high efficiency up to last year. So we need such amount of gunpowder to kill X number of soldiers, etc., etc. So we've coined a new, we're using a new coin, same coin, and we need to overcome many difficulties because this is really incredible. So you have daring dreams, ambitious dreams, you don't make them true. Maybe your colleagues were less brilliant as you expected. There is jealousy, lack of trust, are not putting more money. We are at this stage. This is a foundations crisis. The euro can disappear, or precisely out of pain, out of difficulties, crises lead to catharsis. So conflicts engender a lot of catharsis. So maybe we will only create an European National Bank when we are at the verge of disaster, of an abyss. Otherwise, we will never create that bank. And there is a high risk that this is the case, because we are living a very profound crisis. Now we are relatively quiet, but be careful to what's going around in other places. So what's the future? What does await us? Well, I personally would like that this new energy that has been created out of conflict, and by simplifying a lot with all the nuances, etc., I would be in favor of struggling for a united euro, for the euro as a coin, despite all the...
But it is a time of suffering, and a time that we have to surpass. There is one clear thing, and I want to say from micro to macro, we're changing from micro to macro, but I would also like, and I won't see this, as to how we'll change from macro to micro. And that is, I've discovered something very important. It's the IQ of the politicians, and I don't know if I'm going to go away a lot more worried about this, or an idea that, but I really don't think that that's real. I don't think the IQ that the politicians have. The reality is, what are you talking about? Let's try to manage that diversity that you've talked about in Spain, in Europe. It's great being different. Let's have groups of people who are different. And how are we doing all of this when we see that we don't have impact on essential matters, things that are absolutely essential, with which I trust in the development and the human being from the micro to the macro, and which is the positive part. The positive part that we are requesting from the macro to the micro. And maybe the macro will change if we all change certain things. That is really the reflection, my thought. I share your reflection, and simplifying, I would say the revolution is from the micro to the macro. In fact, I'm seeing some changes, mental changes. All of us here reflecting now, there are hundreds of thousands of Spanish people who are trying to sell something. Don't forget that. Large, medium, large, small companies, people who don't know what to do. And it is a pity that we have to go around with our suitcases and try to sell something. We're having an open Spain, people who are competing, people who are coming out. And that variety of hundreds and thousands fighting is going to give to a positive economic revolution. And we'll see the surprise. We're going to play the game, and we're going to win. I share with you the idea from macro to micro. Among all of us, not just politicians, the whole of society. Of course, the politicians have more responsibility, but society as a whole. If there is not going to be a violent collapse, because there's no social strain as there was before. There's no tension, there's no strain. It's not going to be a violent collapse, or the risk of Italianization of Spanish life. You know what happens in Italy, small, medium-sized enterprises, etc., and a state which is above that, which doesn't change, very weak governments. And one of the things, the hypothesis that I see, It's that things aren't going to change. Forget the agreements, not because society will permit this. As Antonio Machado said, that the Spanish comes into the world, etc., etc. And when Rubalcaba tried to do something different, well, their own people criticized them. If we look back at the history of Spain, because the people, the enterprises, all set out the path, all the important political regimes, none of them been able to adapt. We are unable to make these systems evolve. And only when there's a collapse, there's something born out of that. In 19th century, Carabasagasta, which lasts until Primo de Rivera, when there was a coup d'etat, they were supported by the right or the left wing, and this lasted until the Republic. The monarchy collapsed. There's a collapse of the monarchy, the Republic comes in, and then the other way round, and Franco dies, etc., etc. And in 1978, the year of the Constitution, a great step was taken, but we're incapable of reforming things. If you realize that any little thing takes a long time to evolve, not just the politicians, but society as well. We now have to create something different. We must go from the macro to micro. I can see that everybody's getting ready. I'm going to conquer the world. That is the best business school that exists in the world. I'm going to come out of this unscathed, and that is the best way of looking at it. Let's relax, let's collaborate, let's be good, let's try to reach agreements. But we must never lose hope. Without the microphone, in answer to your reflection, Manuel has given an economic vision from the metaphor of the Spaniard who goes out with his suitcase and tries to sell things, and that is an example of people realizing that where the solution lies. If, like him, he has been in politics, we must realize that the political system isn't going to change very much. There are a lot of vices, and it's going to difficult to change. And we talked about the Spaniard, the metaphor of the Spaniard going out with his suitcase and selling. I would talk about hundreds and thousands of Spanish people. But I would look to talk about those who are working in politics too. The politics is changing. The economic reflection is political. There are communities of people who are trying to self-manage. These are models. The alternative to the institutions, and they've realized that institutions aren't going to solve the problems if they don't solve the problems. And if you have to share resources, you share them. If you have to collaborate, you collaborate. There are all different alternatives, and there are phenomena. We're talking about economic entrepreneurs that Carlos was talking about, social entrepreneurs as well. But what we need are political entrepreneurs. Spain needs political entrepreneurs. These are people who challenge the power. They challenge the power, the same as a small company does with the large companies. We need people who are able to question the political future and who are able to change the management model at a macro level. The 15M was a movement that still has certain influence, and I want to talk about the political entrepreneur, the person who is in the neighborhood working like a ant, contributes little by little, and if the macro level doesn't adapt, well, the same thing as could happen as the dinosaurs. With the same force as the person who goes out with his suitcase to sell things. We need that as well. I wanted to comment on something because I get the impression that we are very unfair with ourselves because we are worth a lot, but we underestimate ourselves. The North Americans say that George Doriot invented in the risk capital with a company, American corporation. That was the first company in digital. 7 years later, digital was listed on the stock exchange and valued 500 times more. And that is not true. You probably remember, or you've read, 1492, Christopher Columbus and his bankrupt state, Castile, and Elizabeth, the Catholic monarch, said that I haven't got any money.
Estudio de mercado terrible, ¿eh? ¿Cuántas expediciones?
How many outings or expeditions? How many people that the people who thought that the world was flattened at that time? The situation, we didn't invented the business angels.
¿Os habéis fijado? No, claro, es que yo os voy a decir una cosa que.
Even though that I'm from Tudela, I'm from Bilbao. No engineer has made me blush in the US, neither me or my colleagues. And we must go abroad to be prophets in our own land. And if somebody starts to stand out, what do? They hit them on the head, so they go back into the ground again. I've been in the US a lot. If they're Congress members and they've failed, well, we must believe in ourselves. We are not so different. Or maybe even better. We speak Spanish. They don't. They only speak English. Yesterday, the last year.
Es verdad, pero es que no nos lo creemos. Yo apelo al optimismo, Leñe. O sea, valemos mucho más.
We are worth a lot more than we believe we are.
Sí. Muy optimista. Nos ha dicho Manuel Pimentel que
Manuel Pimentel has said that intelligence means choosing, and I'm going to ask the speakers to launch a message of optimism. The civil society can do an awful lot without waiting for changes in structures. And I'm going to ask very quickly each of the speakers. There's another question. A simple question. I would like Mr. Ricard to answer. We've got a lot of similarities with the French Revolution, the Bastille, etc. there were enlighteners who showed us the way. There was always somebody who directed, who was a leader. So where are they in the university? Are these people at the university? Do we have to wait for the generation of Mr. Ricard or what?
Si quiere contestarme alguno.
Maybe Miguel would like to answer.
Pues mira, la verdad es que
Truth is that this question was hard to answer because I cannot find the leaders of the future. I'm sorry, but I don't know how to answer that one. We spoke here about another idea, but that's an answer in itself. Thank you.
Por darles cabida a los demás, introducir algún elemento más.
I'd like to introduce some food for thought, some elements that could lead to conclusions that in turn will lead to new questions. I'd like to ask each of you to tell me in a sentence, briefly, after this day, which take-home messages you take. I mean, because you had to make many elections, many choices, started by the left-hand side. So I encourage Aitor to speak about the conclusions about children's workshop, working with creativity. I'll be very brief. I liked to breathe new air that is thinking about new ideas about talent. Regarding the workshop, it was useful to make me think differently. I had forgotten how much children like to look for creative solutions, even though when they do not know how to do it, how courageous they are, how much courage they have, and we do not acknowledge and give value to it. Another conclusion is that by combining adults and children makes you realize how much we've left behind, how much we've lost in becoming adults, how much wealth lies in children, and how we are so courageous to kill that creativity in children. Elena? I'm going to be in line with that. In our workshop, we try to go back to our childhoods, concentrate, and try to, when we forgot about when to eat or when to dream, when to sleep, because we were so interested and so concentrated on what we were doing. Then we moved on to the Canvas scheme with these very intense tests, trying to, in a very intense analysis. We spoke about the way we behave professionally, what tools we use, and then later on we did personal short workshops about certain levels of satisfaction in different aspects of our lives, and make rethinking roles played by us in our personal relationships, be it being a daughter or a mother, a colleague. So trying to detect what we like most of each of those roles we perform, and we finished with a table with a lot of skills, knowledges, competencies, so as to select which ones you are best at. And from each of these 4 parts, we extracted a different conclusion. We wrote down on a piece of paper with Post-its. And these Post-its with 4 words, we could see coherence in our lives. It was very intense and effective work. And we saw whether this was in line with what we felt when we were children. When speaking about political changes, if we listened to children, we would find a solution. I mean, there would be coherence. So I would like to take the Tolucci discourse from the City of Children, and we should start from rock bottom, from them, from children.
Yo tenía la suerte de no haber estado con...
I was lucky enough not to spend time with children, but with university students. Acknowledge the work made by Chomi, Medarit, and Sayua, which are the 3 young people from 18 to 21 years old that illustrated, that told us how we can keep on dreaming, because some of us had stopped dreaming, had given up dreaming, so we need to dream to become entrepreneurs and to learn. So they explain 3 different techniques. We insist on the number 3. Manuel Pimentel spoke about 3 types of people. So 3 again. We implemented 3 different cycles, and we identified 3 times of our lives, 3 dreams, 3 attitudes, 3 crossroads on our lifetimes to choose, to make choice, a choice between what we feel passionate and about and looking for a feasible way to follow. So I like to congratulate Chomin, students from the University of Mondragon, and they built up a new company by becoming entrepreneurs, and I congratulate you. Diana, what's the conclusions you drew from this exchange of ideas? First of all, I'll mention the last thing we commented. I learned to be aware about the importance of decisions. On our everyday life, we make many decisions we are not used to make, and I made those decisions as part of my life. I was fully convinced that we had to do things and give before asking for something in return. But I've just realized that decision-making requires a previous work and not only doing and acting. And maybe we should work on that part, on those talents, together with youngsters. Something that is important to highlight: we need to realize that society is made of all of us. We cannot demand anything to society because we are demanding that from ourselves. So we should look into us and exchange experiences with others that constitute society. Teenagers presented their requests, what they were demanding. And there was a question by Ivan, and he was telling one of the girls to Marta, what are you looking for? What do you ask? Think first about yourself, and then we'll see how we can support each other. And I think this is the right perspective. And that has to do with the specialists. Educating is not learning, but much more than that. I'll ask your name, please. I'll ask Gerard, that comes from Europe, from the Brain Flow program. He spent a whole day with us during these discussions. So, what's your opinion about Navarra, about our region after this experience, about this day?
I think I'm Gerard van Galen. I'm coming from the Netherlands. This day for me was very experienced because all the speakers have good things in it itself. But for me there are some highlights. I will show them to you. First of all, I think the presentation from Pedro was very, very nice. I learned a lot of him, and I will come back on it later. The presentations about the necessity of global talents, of course we know, but we show it already. They told us that we should take care of that. An eye-opener for me were the presentations from Anna and Ricard about sharing talent in the net and the education abyss. And why do I like it? Because I think maybe it should be something for a new Interreg 5C project to share knowledge in several countries. Because what we showed today, it was all kind of things what happens in Navarra region. But you can, as I am a member of BP of Brainflow, you can also learn a lot of all the other regions in Europe. And that is even maybe even nicer than stay only in your own region. I myself was at the workshop, you also were, about, how did you call it again? Your talent, your business model. In 1.5 hours, Begonia, show us who you are, who you were as a baby. Are you in the right place at this moment? Or what should you do to go there? And for myself, I am a happy person because Begonia shows me that I'm in the right place, with the right family, in the right country. So, a happy guy. To conclude what me, I think it was a very good and fruitful meeting. And because I don't think I'm the last speaker, I shouldn't tell the rest. So, and I am also involved in some sub-projects, but I don't tell you because if you want to know, you have to come tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you. Muchas gracias. Juan Miguel ha trabajado con un grupo de...
Thank you. Juan Miguel worked with a group of young people, has worked for the last month. He's presented his work here. At the same time, in a workshop with children that they are about to finish right now.
To sum up, the workshop after lunch looked like my living room. The leading mothers, the educators, and young people, disabled people, and young people. Well, all the young people will graduate tomorrow. It's their graduation party tomorrow. And at the living room at home, there's been quite a lot of stress. It's a creative stress. And there can be intergenerational dialogues. It was nice to see the disabled people saying that they were having their graduation party tomorrow, saying that you should never give up. And they have to face more adversities and more difficulties. And they told the others that they should never give up. And what the other young people have said are the alternatives. It is different. We should listen to what they have to say. And I think all of us are to blame, really. And if you should tell us what you want, and we should help you achieve what you want. And tomorrow, as I was saying, they're going to graduate, and maybe the university isn't ready for the challenge that they have to face. We have to make changes and make them very quickly, because we need to adapt to the market, to adversity that they are going to have to cope with. With respect to the Congress, there are different levels of reality, of crisis, adversity, everything that we're having to face up to. But there's another reality too. There are things that are changing. And I realize that what we have to do is to get into contact with those people that are changing, those things that are changing, which are going to lead to very interesting things.
Para terminar, a Ricard le preguntaría...
I would ask Ricard to finish if you've changed something, your way of thinking after today. Well, yes, that is... the last session has been very good. And I would like to reinforce the message that, yes, we can get out of the crisis, and these small companies As Mr. Pimentel has said, thousands and thousands of Spanish get their take their suitcases and go around the world. And I also took my suitcase to Qatar the other day, and on my way back I met a man who has a furniture shop, an office furniture shop in Barcelona. Imagine how well his business is doing. And they imported from Italy and hadn't sold one single piece of furniture in 2 years. So with his suitcase, he went to Qatar, and now he's equipping skyscrapers in Qatar, and he's doing this from Barcelona with the Italian furniture, and the Italians haven't even visited them. You often meet people in airplanes on your flights, and it's very interesting. We often look at the negative side of things, but we should look at more positive things. Because often we realize when you leave or you go out of the country, you realize that people appreciate us. Another anecdote is a salesperson of chemical products in Copenhagen, and he said, "Do you have difficulties if you go to Germany and sell?" "No, I don't mind. I just go to Germany and I say, look, we Catalan people are better than the Germans because we're equally precise. But when the plan fails, we can improvise better than the Germans." And that's what he said. So we have to, we can come out of this crisis. Well, I think that is a real message. A message of optimism, encouragement. We have to be based on reality. But there is also components. We have to believe in it. We have to use the data available. And this, I believe, could be a way of finishing this session. I'd like to thank Brainflow and our colleagues from Europe who have made it possible to hold this Congress. Tomorrow we continue, and they're going to present the results of their 7 projects, all focused on the question which is still open and hasn't been answered. Maybe the conclusion would be another question, a message of optimism. The question is how, as Pedro Miguel Echenique said, how can we attract and retain talent, which is the objective of Brainflow? How can we take care of our talent and sow the talent? These are my thanks and 3 requests. Those of you who haven't registered for tomorrow, please do so now. Secondly, we've given you a questionnaire, and now we're here, us in Navarre, we're going to bear all of these ideas in mind, and we are going to try to continue to reflect on these questions, because if the idea doesn't become a habit, you have a form, you're asked to have a project, an idea that you believe could be interesting, which could help us in MODERNA start up a team, a mixed team, and we can prepare a project with these ideas. Others participate by activating the idea, but and if you could fill in again the survey, you're giving your opinion on the Congress, I would also be grateful for that. So with that, we'll finish here. Thank you to everybody. Thank you very much.